Hello, listeners. My name is Donna Quo, and I am a board-certified psychiatric and family nurse practitioner. Welcome to the Brighten Up Podcast, where we pull up the shades and shine the light on mental health topics both affecting and improving the lives of families. Today, we are shining the light on stories of strength, growth, and purpose, and exploring how challenge can truly bring out the best in us. Today's guest is someone who embodies leadership, discipline, and heart, values that seem harder and harder to come by in our fast-paced digital world. I am deeply honored to welcome Colonel Joseph Land, founder and commander of Extreme Military Challenge, XMC, a transformative military-style youth leadership program that has been changing lives across the country and around the world. Colonel Land brings over 3 decades of military experience, having served our nation with distinction in both active and reserve components. But what makes him truly remarkable is his gift for inspiring the next generation, empathy, resilience, and teamwork in young people who come to XMC seeking direction, strength, and confidence. In just 4 weeks, he and his dedicated cadre do what might take years in quote-unquote the real world, helping teens rediscover discipline, accountability, and pride in themselves. Today, we'll be talking all about leadership, character building, and what it means to raise strong, kind, and capable young men and women in a generation facing unprecedented pressures. Colonel Land, I have been so excited for this podcast. I've been thinking about it and talking about it since I met you in person over the summer after our son attended the program and graduated as a cadet and then went on to the 2-week leadership program. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to honor us with your presence today on the podcast.
Wow. Well, I appreciate it. The guy you just described sounds pretty cool. I'd like to meet him someday because he sounds a lot more than what you're talking to, but I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
You measure up 100%. Trust me. And you high tides lift many boats, and you're definitely doing that, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
So we'll go ahead and dive in and just really want the listeners to learn more about this impressive program and spread the word. We feel fortunate to have come upon Camp Liberty and XMC Challenge. My husband located the program last fall, and we gravitated to it immediately, and we're just so impressed. So we're very happy to be spreading the word today. Let's talk about leadership in today's generation. Colonel Land, you've worked with thousands of teens and young people across the country and around the world. What do you see as the biggest difference between today's youth and past generation when it comes to leadership, motivation, and resilience?
From a large scale, it boils down to the communication style. I'll give you a little bit of a correction in your introduction. Come April 10th of next year, I will actually have been in a uniform of some sort, starting as a 13-year-old cadet for 50 years. So I've been watching this for a long, long time. When you look at today's young people and you look at those of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, a big part of it goes back to how do you communicate with them and how do they communicate among themselves? And I think in part, societally, what are the standards that they're held to? And one thing that obviously you know from having your youngster come through our program, it's all about earned, never given. I think the young people find that to be refreshing, that what they get, they know they've worked for us, therefore it means something to them. It has more value to them. I think that they know that, that other motto, hardcore out the door, give 110% or go home. There is no, everybody gets a trophy in our environment by any means. Our society has shifted quite a bit. So you have to lead based on who the other person is, not based on who you are. And I say that all the time. I may be all gung-ho, rah-rah about one thing, but that has no bearing on what's important to you. So as a leader, I need to understand what's important to you and then lead accordingly based on those values and those priorities that you as the other party may have. And we try our best to do that with these young people. It's tough because you're taking them out of the norm. You're putting them into a pretty adult type of environment, and you're telling them you can't communicate with the outside world every second of every minute of every day, which is foreign for many of these young people. They're being held to, a high level of accountability, both individually, but also as a team within their squad or their platoon. So a lot of differences between yesteryear and today, and we try our best to adjust fire accordingly in order to make sure that we're connecting with these young people the best way possible.
I really admire what you're saying, that what might be important to you, what might motivate you, isn't necessarily going to cross generations and motivate these youngsters, and really diving into what does get them to tick and keep them on task is a great plan, and challenging. And I'm sure different for different kids, which is why you have to, even within the same camp, having the cadre that's able to pick that apart and execute that.
Yeah, we've got quite the diverse cadre, and our folks range from ranger instructors that have taught Army Rangers to drill instructors and drill sergeants who have produced America's warfighters, to those folks that are the softer side of Sears. And truthfully, I'm one of the softer sides. I was a broadcast journalist in the military. I did combat camera, public affairs, training and development. I'm not a snake eater. I'm not the guy that's going to go out, have a K-bar in my teeth. That's just not who I am. But I learned a long time ago to surround myself with people who have the skills and the attitudes that I don't have. And that's, not just good leadership, but also good management, because you're managing those various skills. So we'll have some young people, and they're convinced that they're going to be special forces, and they're what I call my Call of Duty Rangers. They've walked or played too many hours of that silly game, and they come to us and they're all gung ho. I'm going to be special forces. I'm going to chase snakes. I'm going to eat trees. Then after about 2 weeks, they realize, this stuff's hard. I think I'm going to be a cosmetologist. That sounds easier, and that's fine. Yeah. Be good at whatever it is that you're going to do, but be really good at it and jump into it with both feet. And, have some passion about, and then you'll be good to go.
Exactly. Find out what you're good at, what motivates you, and go for it. For the listeners out there that may not be familiar with Extreme Military Challenge, tell us how this got started and how this was born, how long it's been available, and what you hope each cadet takes away when they enter the ground floor with the first cadet training that they all must complete to move on to other programs.
Right. They have to complete basic training. All right. So a little bit of history. I was a cadet many, many years ago in the Chicagoland area, and it defined who I am. And some good folks instilled in me that I was capable of doing things that I did not think possible. Everything in my life said that I was going to be, working at the corner gas station. And there's nothing wrong with working at the corner gas station, but I realized that I could do different things and go different places. So in 1981, I joined the Navy to get away from the cold weather Chicago. My first deployment was to the Arctic Circle. I was later sent to Iceland for 2.5 years. So that didn't work so good.
Right.
I hate cold weather. From there, I continued to work with young people with the Sea Cadet program, and wound up as the chief of staff and then ultimately the commander of another nationwide program. Ran a military school, and then I was frankly going to hang up my sword and kind of give it up. I'd put in many, many hours. I felt like I'd paid back what it had done for me. And fortunately, some good people that care about me, including my son who loves me, said, hey, we still need you. You got a lot to offer, and you're making an impact. And last count, I've had about 12 to 14,000 young men and women go through my life over the last many years. So we wound up starting Extreme Military Challenge at Marion Military Institute in Alabama, and spent 2 years there. The program, the very first year, had only 37 young people. We built it from there so that the second year would have 118, and last year we had 337. So we've continued to grow. 10 years ago, we bought the property in Battleground, Alabama, known as Camp Liberty. It's 75 acres, has 22 buildings, bed space for 300, dining hall, obstacle course, rappel tower, zip lines, marksmanship range, close quarters combat shoot house. Yeah, it's basically like a little National Guard base. And we've continued to build and grow and add courses and do good things. And ultimately, it boils down to the Army's values. And the Army's values are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. They're not trademarked. They just mean be a good person. And if we can demonstrate through our actions those 7 values, and we can instill those values in young people, whether they join the military or not, we've done good things. They've gained something as a human being. And for some, their goal in life is going to be to serve 30 years in the uniform and continue to protect America's way of life. Others will come here and say, yeah, no, that's not for me. That's okay. If later in life they take off their hat during the national anthem, mission accomplished. If they understand those 7 values and they say at the airport and they see a warfighter walking down the way, wow, I'm really glad she does what she does, mission accomplished. So it's not about kind of shoving young people towards the military by any means. In fact, there's been plenty I've said, this is not really where you want to go. We need to kind of get you back towards reality and less towards recruiter speak. I can be a recruiter's absolute best friend or worst enemy, depending on how they're treating my young people. At the end of the day, we just want to create good people, leaders, folks that have got some sense of desire to do good for others, and hopefully an understanding that we have an absolute blessing, a privilege to live in this country. Yeah. And it's kind of like a reverse checking account. Sometimes we withdraw, and every so often we need to put in. And I'm not talking money, I'm talking effort and passion and love of country.
We need that more and more in every generation, and to continue to infinity in our beautiful country, that we are the luckiest people in the world to live here. And we need good people that adopt those values, live out those values in whatever capacity they decide to work in. Like your advertisement says, whether that's in their communities, their families, their churches, the military, those values are universal and applicable in every setting.
I've been to 34 countries and 48 states in the name of this nation. I've seen a lot of things. Sometimes folks complain. They have no idea what they're complaining about or the blessing that they have by being here. Don't get me wrong. We're people. There's always going to be issues. There's always going to be tug of war and pull and disagreements and all the rest. And that's just part of society. And I don't have to agree with the other party. I did wear a uniform so they would have the ability to have their opinion, even if it's different than mine. And I will always respect that opinion, and frankly will shed my last drop in order to protect the ability to have that opinion, because that's what we as a country should be like. And that's the way I was taught as a young lad.
Absolutely. Everybody's voice matters in a respectful way, where we maintain honor and dignity to everybody's opinion and respect this country, because even individuals struggling the most with the least resources are still absolutely some of the luckiest in the world to live here.
Oh, yeah.
Colonel, Extreme Military Challenge is more than just one experience. It's more than just going through the basic training, graduating as a cadet. Tell us about what some of the other programs available at XMC are, or Camp Liberty. There's quite a few. The grounds are absolutely beautiful, state of the art. The camp is just run fantastically, so well organized. All of your staff is very responsive. I mean, it's an impressive operation. I just have to put that out there too.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, so let's start with the beginning. Young people, kind of going back to how do you lead them? Unfortunately, young people today kind of have a classroom to the boardroom mentality. They think they need to, bypass the various steps of life and go straight to, that high-paying job, and that's not reality. And just for clarity, Camp Liberty is the facility, Extreme Military Challenge is the summer program, and we do a number of other things here on Camp Liberty. So the very first program for Extreme Military Challenge, XMC, is Cadet Basic Training. It's boot camp for good kids. And I say for good kids because I get the call all the time. My kid's disrespectfully hangs out at night, he's doing bad things, and they want to send him to me. I'm like, the days of joining the Army, you go to jail went away in the 70s. We don't do that nonsense. The military is an honorable and respectful profession for honorable and respectable people. So the first step is Cadet Basic Training. It's the hard stuff. It's the bad haircut. It's the marching. It's the drill instructors in your nose. It's going through the obstacle course, the rappel tower, down the zip lines. It's combatives. It's pugil sticks. It's standing inspection and passing tests and hoping that you get through. And about 92% or so will pass it. Okay. Again, not everybody gets a cookie.
Right.
After basic training, then they will have earned the title of cadet. For those of your listeners that have a military background, they will connect that to the Marine Corps mentality. And because we're joint service, then we kind of take from the best of all worlds. So we make a big deal of you earn the title of cadet. You're not a Marine until you make it through basic training at Parris Island or San Diego. You're not a cadet until you make it through cadet basic training. After cadet basic training, there are a variety of different programs. There's the 2-week leadership program, which is kind of like blue phase of Army basic training condensed. So they're in the field, they're learning land navigation, they're rotating through leadership roles, they're doing soldier stuff. We've also got programs ranging from the Cadet Medic School. That's a 3-week curriculum that is the Emergency Medical Responder course curriculum, which is one step below EMT. The cadets can actually sit for the National Registry and become a licensed emergency medical responder. Wow. We have the 3-week Cadet Engineer course where they design, build, protect, and if they have their way, learn how to blow up various facilities. We try to stay away from the blow up part. We have the 4-week Cadet Ranger School, the hardest program in the country. I bring in bona fide Ranger instructors, and we have 2 week phases. Phase 1 is selection through completion of that 2 weeks, and then those that make it through can be invited to come back for phase 2. At the end of those total of 4 weeks, then they have earned their cadet beret as a cadet ranger. And we've had, in 10 years, probably 25 cadets that have earned that. So it's very, very tough. We have a 2-week military police academy. For the first time this year, we have a 2-week search and rescue academy, which is a brand new curriculum we're really excited about. During the week after Christmas, we have a cadet tactical skills training course, which is getting into field and urban survival. So different types of survival techniques. And we just finished just over a week ago with the cadet staff ride, where I took 18 cadets and 6 cadre to Washington, D.C. They had the opportunity to lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. They had a private tour of the Pentagon. They went to a reception with the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff, the Sergeant Major of the Army. A lot of inspirational opportunities to meet some very senior folks and use that as a means to determine kind of what pathway they want to take in life, whether it be the military or not.
So lots of different broadcasting live there from the Oval Office last week. That was magnificent. Yes, that
pretty
was
cool, huh?
Yes.
Well, just for clarity, that was a duplication of the Oval Office. Okay, that was at the White House Museum, or the White House Experience, I think they call it. It's brand new, but it's a really cool facility. Unfortunately, the White House now is closed for tours for a variety of different reasons. It should open hopefully for next year. I am not ashamed about sharing the message of our program, and I'll do it from the deck of an aircraft carrier or the simulated Oval Office of the White House.
Absolutely. I mean, the trip looked magnificent. That experience for the kids, for listeners that would like to visit XMC Facebook page, there's some pictures up there that you shared with the public, and there was a convention going on at the same time, the Army convention that lined up.
Yeah, the Association of the United States Army has their largest military convention on earth. And we line up our cadet staff ride with that event. And it's extraordinary. And the young people get to see the latest and greatest in technology. They learned about drones. They saw helicopters. They were inside of, heavy machinery. I mean, just everything imaginable. And truthfully, these teenage cadets probably met more 3- and 4-star generals in 5 days than most warfighters will meet in a 20-year career. It's just extraordinary. And probably one of the key things, they went to the president's reception on Monday night. Wednesday morning, we're walking through the White House on a private tour, and a 4-star, I won't say who, but a 4-star, very senior up the food chain, recognized our cadets, stopped, shook their hands, and said, "Hey, it's great to see you guys again. You're looking good."
How about that?
What a motivator for a bunch of 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that may potentially want to join ranks and be part of that institution, to know that somebody at the 4-star level said, these guys are impressive enough at this age for me to remember who they were. They weren't just some group. They were a team, and they represented something special. And that meant a lot to those young people, and I'm sure it will for many years to come.
As it should. I hope to have my son on that cadet ride next October with you, and he is signed up for the medic program. I feel fortunate that we were able to start him at a young age and really just build and get this experience, which with all of these programs, if we can swing it and do it, but what better preparation for life and confidence and real skills to promote and instill integrity and confidence in young people.
I think part of what we do is simply act as a force multiplier for the parents. You know, mom can say, Johnny, don't touch the oven, it's hot. And unfortunately, Johnny says, well, that's just mom. But when Sergeant Smith says, don't touch the oven, it's hot, same message, different tone of voice, different person, it kind of accentuates, hey, don't touch the darn oven. And, you know, that may be a silly analogy, but the idea is that oftentimes we're saying the same things that mom and dad will, but we're saying them with a different tone of voice. You may say, you better go clean up that room or there's going to be heck to pay. When my drill instructors say, you better clean up that bed, make that bed tight and be ready for inspection, it's the same message, just in a different tone. And I have found that oftentimes our cadets go back home and suddenly the little things become more important. I'm not promising that. You know, you get them after I've got them. Okay. So the parents' job is to continue to accentuate what we have taught, but oftentimes they take it a little bit more serious. And I got to tell you, it's kind of comical to me because I can't tell you how many times my name has been used to, taken to bear when Johnny's not doing what they're supposed to do. And they're like, well, we're going to call Colonel Land. My response is, you really need to call Sergeant Major Perez because he's going to be the one that's really going to get after that young person.
Oh, but yeah.
It's all good.
There's space there. Pick up your duffel bags and run to me. I mean, that is priceless.
Strap in and hold fast, little recruits. This is going to be a turbulent ride. Welcome to Extreme Military Challenge.
That's right. That's right. And for the sake of your listeners, XMC Camp, so 2 C's in the middle, xmccamp.com is our website. It has a link to our Facebook page, and there are tons and tons of videos and posts and updates and such. You'll get a really good insight to what we've done going back many years.
I need to stop. I need to stop. So keep running. Knees up. Knees up. Run. Knees up. Knees up. Down. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Are you kidding me? Yes, sir.
That's fantastic. And we will most definitely post a link to the website here on the podcast once it's broadcasted too. So take a look in the show notes, and that's great to know. Thank you. And I think that's a great introduction. And in a society now with kids where they have so many distractions, to get in there and manually change the television channel in their brain and expose them to all of this, I would like to share with the listeners, ask them to please stay on as there will be another segment with my son, Christian, who completed the program this past summer, who graduated as a cadet and finished the leadership program. So don't disconnect quite right away. For our son was tremendous and had such a positive impact. I will say after a couple months, he does need a little bit of redirection, but he's responsive and he's a good kid and he remembers. Mm-hmm. And we have the memorabilia up in his room, the sign and all of it. So amazing. I cannot recommend this program enough. I talk about it. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to about it. Many parents like myself describe XMC as life-changing for their kids. What would you say are the specific experiences or moments in the program that have the greatest impact on helping young people develop self-discipline, confidence, and empathy?
I'm going to take a step back and argue that it is oftentimes life-changing, not just for the young person, but also their parents. We intentionally create an experience that goes beyond my 75 acres and includes, embraces, and sometimes shakes the parents as they're going through the experience as well. So, for example, if your son were 18 and he went off to the military, you as a parent, if you'd not had this same experience, would go through all those points of concern, those frustrations, that anxiety, the questions, the confusion, the aggravation of not really knowing what you're getting into. And we know that that's part of the experience for the parents as well. So answering your question, minute one at Camp Liberty is when it begins. Minute one, when the parents are told, remain in your vehicle. Johnny and Janie get out, stand in front of the vehicle with your bag to your right, looking straight ahead. The parents at that very moment realize they're no longer in charge of that child, that we have taken responsibility. And I become what's called in loco parentis, and I take that very, very serious because I become legally the temporary parent for all these young people.
Yes.
And there's no level of responsibility that I could think that would be any higher for me in this context. So for minute one, we make it clear to the parent, wow, this is real, and they're serious, and they're professional about it, and they're no nonsense, and it's on. Now, the recruits are, running and yes sir, no sir, and going through and all the rest. And then I take the parents to the side and I will, in a very calm voice, say, listen to me carefully. It's a show. It's all a very well choreographed show to make sure that they understand what they're getting into should they decide to go into the military. And you as parents need to understand that you're not in charge. You can't save your child. You can't pack 5 extra pairs of socks because you think they're going to lose them. We drive home from minute one that you follow the packing list to the letter. If it says 7 pairs of socks, that means 1 on their feet, 6 in the bag. Not 10 because mama thinks she knows better, but 7 pairs of socks. We'll throw away the other 3 pair if you pack 10. So now they realize this is real. So that's when accountability kind of hits both the parent and the youngster. I think reality kind of hits the youngster, at least for the young men, when they get that haircut, because we have 2 types of haircuts, bad and worse. And any of us that have gone through the military experience as a male, we've been through that routine. And they realize, oh, there's no turning back on this.
Right. Game on, literally.
Game on. And then those first 3 days are intentionally very, very tough. No matter what, they can't do anything right. The drill instructors are in their nose. Yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Make your bed, rip your bed, make your bed, rip your bed, pack your stuff, unpack your stuff. They're confused, they're frustrated, they're aggravated. They realize that not everybody listens as well as they do, or maybe they don't listen as well as the others do. And then we start to see who the strong ones are. And frankly, that's when we find out who shouldn't be there in the first place.
Right.
The ones where the parents pulled a fast one and lied, saying that the kid wanted to be there when in reality they didn't, and the parents are trying to dump them on us. We know. It doesn't take 48 hours before they wash out if they don't want to be there.
Right.
We know from experience the next real turning point is on training day 3, and that's when they're on the obstacle course. Now it's not, hey, Smith, get yourself straight. Jones, stand up right. It's, hey, Smith, how about Jones? You guys can get over that obstacle together. So now the drill instructors are taking a slightly different tone, and they're pushing, but they're pushing them as a team, not just as individuals. And this is all, again, choreographed. Mm-hmm. Now, for the first time, they have the opportunity to have a taste of success and a taste of victory because somebody's going to get that streamer. Somebody's going to be a winner. Someone's going to be a loser. That's all there is to it. The amount of spirit that comes out of the obstacle course on that 3rd training day is remarkable. And it's really a turning point for the basic training experience. I think the next turning point, and there's many, would be when they're on the pugil sticks. And the pugil sticks, for those listeners that are not aware, the big Q-tip looking things that warfighters bop the crap out of each other with. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's serious. It's brutal, and it's hard, and it takes some spirit. It takes some fire, and guess what? Someone's going to get knocked, and someone's going to lose, and someone's going to win. It instills what we call the warrior spirit. And all that is tenacity, a drive, a desire to win, to get through that hard stuff, no matter how hard it may be. See the hill, attack the hill, take the darn hill.
Right.
And many of them, they find some fire in the gut that they didn't realize was there. And that it has nothing to do with the burritos in the dining hall, I promise. Okay?
Yeah.
So then the final for basic training, that real turning point is when they're marching out on the drill deck. and they're saluting during the national anthem, and they get that cadet tab on their sleeve. And they realize that the guy next to them didn't get it because they didn't pass the physical fitness test. And that they still have to retake that test in order to get there because nothing's given. It's earned, never given.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different turn points in our program. They're all very much so built in by design.
Absolutely. And really, it's aligns beautifully with the core Army values and very professionally run. And I can attest to having the parents participate. Our older son dropped our 13-year-old off this past summer. He wanted to go, but I think he was a little bit nervous. He was open to it, but he loved it. And we knew he could do it. He shared with us that you said the same thing, that, you were just professional. You were in charge of all these youngsters, and it was teaching the parents as well, like not to call and ask you stupid questions, not to lean on each other if we had questions, other parents that had been through the program before, and taking accountability for our own actions so that we could model it for these young cadets once they finished, which was helpful. And especially the legal pad, the messages you would put up on Facebook, you did a terrific job updating the parents every day on what was going on, getting a glimpse of your child. You had everything under control. Everybody was having a good time, yet working super hard and knew what they had to do.
Well, it's called extreme military challenge. None of those three words mean easy. It's not designed to be easy. But at the end of it all, that young person will have an understanding of those Army values and have a better understanding of who they are and what they're capable of. And just as important, if not more so, is mom and dad will understand what that youngster is capable of. Hopefully give them the opportunity to shine a little bit more on their own rather than to feel like they need to scoop them up and, hold them tight all the time. It's hard. I know. I've got your child, and all you get is, a glimpse of them on Facebook and, a video here and a video there and some updates. So I come from a public affairs background. I know the importance of making sure that that your youngster is doing well. And I won't say they're all having fun all the time because it's hard. But at the end of it all, fun is defined by the individual, not by the program. And for some, they are learning more about themselves, about society, about life on these 75 acres in 14 days than they'll gain anywhere else in 10 times that period of time. I think that the parents also learn a lot. They learn a lot about parenting. They learn a lot about letting go, trust the system. I'll give you an example. I had a parent 2 years ago that called me and insisted on, hey, I'm going through bad anxiety. I really just need to know how my son's doing. And my response was, what time, ma'am? Excuse me? What time? And of course she was confused. I said, what time are you going to pick up your son? Because if you don't trust me to take care of this, then you need to come pick up your son, because obviously this is more about you than it is your son. And She got real quiet and she said, yes, sir, I'll see you at graduation. And I didn't hear from her again.
Right.
That's not easy to do. I know I'm talking to a mom, but sometimes that harshness is what she needed in order to realize that she just had to let her 16-year-old son shine. And he did. He did just fine.
Absolutely.
She was the one that was having to learn as much or more so than him.
Kids will rise to the occasion if given the opportunity. And I am a firm believer especially with being a mental health professional, that growth really occurs outside of your comfort zone. Kid gloves 24/7 doesn't help to build resilience that we all need some degree of for life. The good times, the more rough times, to lead, to be role models. I think XMC is the perfect balance with bringing kids through the whole experience of the really hard days in the beginning, and then joining as a team, and then that reward at the end.
Well, I've long said, if you don't expect much, you don't get much. I expect a lot. I may not get everything that I expect, but a lot more than I would otherwise. That's the key. We intentionally run this on what I call a roller coaster. Some days are hard, some days are fun, some days are a little easier, some days are very, very intense. And as they run the roller coaster, they realize that that's life. Some days are going to be hard. Some days are going to be great. Some days are going to be easy. Some days you're going to feel like there's no way I can get through this. I tell parents all the time, if a youngster can get through my drill instructors, they can get through a hiring manager. They can get through a college admissions officer. If they can get off my rappel tower, they can deal with a flat tire and a crying baby 10 years from now. It's about building personal strength and resiliency more so than military rah-rah gung-ho skills.
Right.
Now, granted, some, that's their calling, but for many, it's not, and that's okay. Just be a good person.
Just be a good person. And they all look so damn good in the uniform with the American flag. I mean, that is timeless, priceless. You know, our son, we were prepping. We were, you know, getting ready a couple weeks before it was time for drop off. And, you know, he was shaking that long hair and said, I'm in the best shape in this family out of anyone in this family. And those first few letters, that degree of respect and dialing it back a little bit with humility of, Mom, I really miss you. This is really hard, but I'm doing it. And just that vulnerability and that rising to the occasion. I mean, he'll be 95 years old, undoubtedly, and remember that and recall that. To me, I mean, you can't put a price tag on that. Speaking of cadre, Christian's DI queen, who he really liked. Mm-hmm. Tell us how you have the real deal cadre. It's pretty intense curriculum to even become a DI. I was watching a documentary on it, that it's such an elite group of people and the training involved with it, even to qualify. And then for XMC to bring these individuals and find them the DIs to work with the kids that love kids, that are willing to give back and strike that perfect balance of motivation, discipline, empathy, all of the values of how they are able to motivate these kids to rise to the occasion and be successful or not.
Well, getting the drill instructors on the roster is a real challenge that is heavily lifted by Command Sergeant Major Perez. And before I go any further, let me explain to your listeners, we are a joint service environment. So I have Air Force, Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. I've not had the Space Force yet, but I'm sure eventually that will come. So we use the generic term drill instructor because we are joint service. So we'll have Air Force military training instructors, a Coast Guard company commander, an Army drill sergeant, Marine Corps drill instructor. But again, because we're joint service, we use the generic term drill instructor. And sometimes that, twists people a little bit because they are very purist as far as terminology, but we've had to go in that direction. With that said, our drill instructors come from, just like the rest of the cadre, all walks of life. We'll have some that are retirees that they miss it. They put back on a uniform. It's funny because I kind of call them the furry platoon, because most of them have beards 2 days before we start the summer. And we'll be doing our Zoom calls. And it looks like, everybody's all bearded up. And come day one, though, everyone's shaved and looks good and back in uniform. And, maybe a little grayer around the temples, but still gung-ho. So we'll have some drills that are retirees. We'll have some that are veterans that, perhaps they have left the service for medical reasons, but they still just love doing it. And they're all in a modified uniform. So the branch tape is different. The shoulder sleeve insignia is different. We're not there representing the Army. We're representing XMC. We also hire in reserve drill sergeants from the Army Reserve units. And several of our drills come from that environment where they are civilians 28 days a month. And then 1 week in a month, they're in the Army as a reservist, and they do their 2 weeks during the summer. And then we will hire them separate from their Army commitment to come work for us from anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. So we'll have some lieutenants that are brand new, freshly picked, recently commissioned lieutenants that come from the various military colleges. We've got reservists that we'll hire in. We'll have former cadets that we bring in. Quite the management montage to bring all the right skills and backgrounds and levels and ranks. We're kind of an upside down camp, because if you look at your typical summer camp, there's 2 or 3 very seasoned professional people and a lot of youngsters that kind of carry out the summer programs. We're just the opposite. We have a lot of seasoned and professional people, and very few of the kind of the youngsters that are the helper bees And that's okay because they're learning. But from a management standpoint, and frankly, from a financial standpoint,
Right.
I have really good people and I try my best to pay them well and at least as fair as possible. And there's a lot of them. So it takes quite the family and quite the team to put this together. And anyone that's been around the military has used the phrase, every formation is a family reunion and every meal is a feast. Well, I'll tell you that my food service folks, they put out a feast. Truly, after 12 years of doing this, every year it is kind of a family reunion because I've got some that have been with me for 8, 10, 12 years. It's just a great way to continue to serve.
I believe it. It's just a great place to have gone through and go back and visit over and over, and unforgettable for both young men and young women. And I had the honor of meeting a few young ladies who completed the program this summer at the airport as we were all flying out. That was fantastic to see. At the video of the first night the shark attacked, one of these young ladies was brought to tears just with the beginning introduction with doing the push-ups. But to see her at the airport 4 weeks later and that pride on her face, that smile, it was palpable. I want to just clarify, this isn't just for young men, it is for young women. And what is the ratio typically in a given summer?
18% young ladies that take 34% of the awards.
Okay. See that.
So, yeah, we've got a real good presence. And let me tell you, every so often, I'll get a parent that says, I don't know if my daughter can do this. She's just a girl. Okay. I'm not sure if a girl. I said, well, stop. If she wants to be here, first off, I'm the most equal opportunity commander you can ask for. And my young ladies tear it up. And I'll give you an example. 5 or 6 years ago, I had a young guy outside my door. He was just shy of 18. He was the football quarterback, student body president, looked like something straight out of a recruiting poster, on his way to West Point Prep. And he's outside my door and he's crying because he misses mommy. Okay. He's a big old strapping kid. Next to him is this young lady. She was 12 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks. She had a 10-day waiver to be able to come to camp. She couldn't have been 85 pounds soaking wet. And she looks up at him and she says, would you just suck it up and grow a pair? So
love it.
Size, age, gender, none of that matters. It's all about fire in the gut. And she had the fire in the gut, let me tell you. And she tore it up. 3 years ago, my number one camp-wide honor graduate that received the Crawford Award was 13 in a week. He had just turned 13 during basic training, and he received the award as the number one recruit over 120 others. So age, size, gender, none of it matters. It goes back to how much do you want it? How hard are you willing to work? And
Right.
What is that drive and tenacity that's deep in your soul?
Exactly. It's called grit. It's not necessarily intellect or ability or size. And there was actually a study done about 10 years ago by a reputable psychologist at West Point who followed kids in the program and who graduated and stuck it out and was most successful. And grit was the overwhelming factor that really decided that. So
Absolutely.
yes.
If you look at the history of Camp Liberty, I want to throw this out here because sometimes it gets lost. The reason Camp Liberty exists is because of my grandfather. My grandfather, who raised me, he was the male presence in my life. He served in the 101st Airborne during World War II. He fought Normandy. He was a prisoner of war, received 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart, and everything about him was focused on make it happen. He started out life shoveling coal for the railroad and then wound up joining the Army. And then he left the Army because his mom pulled him out because she was the only male in the family. The minute he turned 21, he went right back in. That's the example that made me who I am and thus my son who he is and so forth and so on. And between my son and I, and he's my business partner on this,
Right.
between the two of us, we've had thousands and thousands of young people go through our gates. It's still powerful and it still means a great deal to both of us as we have that impact on young people.
It must just be not only people in our country, but you've drawn so many young people from different countries, which is magnificent for our fellow citizens that are going through the program to have that opportunity to meet people around the world and connect with other kids and value systems.
From Uzbekistan to Japan, from Ireland to England, from the Caribbean, all over the world. I think last count, we've had 63 countries pass through my gates.
And counting.
And counting.
We're hearing a lot about the boy crisis. Boys a little bit confused, living in this gray zone of how should I be, how should I act? And it's creating some confusion and chipping away a little bit at their self-esteem, their drive, knowing what they're capable of. And I've got to say, XMC really sets these boys up, I think, especially in this moment in time, and young ladies, but boys who are lost, because I do think that is an issue in our current society, and makes them kinder, emotionally more grounded, and resilient. To your point about describing your grandfather and that sense of purpose and leadership, it really is creating that for them. So when they are done and they've executed the mission, they're standing taller, prouder. In your view, once the kids finish the program, the cadet basic training, the leadership program, as was the case with our son, at the end of the graduation, I can remember Sergeant Perez saying, "We've done our job to lay down the foundation, and it's up to you parents to continue encouraging the youngsters to live out these core Army values." What would you recommend to parents that we could do once cadets arrive back home to really continue to foster what they experienced and learned at XMC?
Command Sergeant Major Perez does a great job driving that point home, and he's spot on. We can build a foundation for the house, but the parents have to make sure the house gets built the rest of the way. Well, I think we do a really good job giving that foundation, but if two things don't happen when the cadet goes back home, then it will all be for naught. And that goes to example and reinforcement. The parents have to set the example of being a good person. The parents have to set the example. If you expect your youngster to be, to school on time, then the parent needs to be to work on time or be picking up from school on time or whatever it may be. Whatever it is that you expect, you need to set the example in your own actions. If you're going to fuss at your son or daughter for using bad language, then you ought not be using colorful words every other word. It just goes back to,
right.
You need to be an example of what you expect them to be. I think sometimes parents kind of lose track of that. The other is, accountability and being willing to make corrections without pouncing on the youngster. One of the things we do that deviates from the Army, and it follows actually what the Marine Corps does, and I think the Air Force still does, is as young people, even though they're in a basic training environment, they sound off with yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Now, the Army would say yes, drill sergeant, no, drill sergeant. But the phrase yes, drill sergeant, no, drill sergeant serves no purpose after they leave my gate. Saying yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir does. So that is a basic indicator of respect. It's fundamental. And I grew up in the South, probably more evident here, but certainly in most cases, folks do appreciate that level of respect, especially from a teenager. Now, arguably, some folks will get fussy about it because of the way their culture is, but we find that teaching that basic respect goes a long way. Well, when I have young people, challengers, talking to their parents, even when I've got them in my office and I hear, yeah, and I correct them on the spot. It's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You're in my world.
Right.
If the parents don't do that, though, or if the parents don't expect that, then guess what? It's going to go away quickly. Very, very quickly. Because if you don't expect much, you don't get much.
Right.
So I think it goes back to, again, by personal example and by accountability. Hey, Johnny, I know you leave for school in 10 minutes. You need to go make that bed because you got to make your bed every day. Now, if you just let them get by, first time, they're going to do it a second time. Then it's the third time. Then they'll never make their bed again.
Right.
Whereas the first time you say, hey, go make your bed. And if you're late, then you need to deal with the front office. Then they're going to realize, hey, this is real. this as a parent, this is not just, words of threat. Okay. If you don't make your bed, I'm going to do so-and-so. This is reality.
Right.
I think the other thing is for parents to raise their children, not for the internet to raise their children.
Yes.
Go outside.
Guardrails, 100%.
Ride a bike. Get dirty. Throw a ball. Do something. And set the phone, the tablet, the laptop, the desktop, whatever it may be, set it to the side once in a while, or at the very least, have some parameters that say, you're only on this thing so much a day, rather than doing what I call the teenage zombie stare. Even during the cadet staff ride, I had to take away the phones and get into them because they were doing the zombie stare, and it does no good for any of them. And unfortunately, that's a reality of our society today.
Right. There really needs to be guardrails up. Learn how to maintain eye contact, ask questions, open-ended questions, back and forth dialogue. And that's the true richness of life, are those face-to-face conversations. And I completely agree with you. I can say if I had to do it all over again, I would have held off until at least ninth grade, probably, before introducing a device or a phone that could be used regularly. It just was so commonplace. It can be fixed and you can back up on it, but you've got to have that consistency and that accountability. Like you said, you can't let it slide.
Well, the problem is, there's social stigma of, oh, you got a flip phone and I don't, and all that kind of nonsense that happens amongst kids. And then there's parents that they are as addicted as the child. I have as much or more difficulty getting the parents used to the idea that they don't have Johnny or Janie on a digital leash all day long, every day, all day, as I do instilling that in the young people. The parents have a hard time with that because I get it. You want to know where your child is, but there's something to be said for them being unplugged for a little while. Mm-hmm. And flip side is, again, go out and get dirty. Kids today, they don't ride bikes. They don't skin their knees. They don't build tree houses. They don't go exploring. Everything has to be staring at a little bitty screen, especially right now. We found this in the last year to two. We're dealing with kind of the post-COVID teenagers now. Mm-hmm. And those poor kids were, they were wrapped up in bubble wrap and told to stay 6 feet apart from everybody and not to interface. And, they went to school staring at a tablet, and they're just not used to being out and interfacing and socializing and getting dirty, doing something. And that's part of what is so great about our program. But for some, that's what's so incredibly foreign about our program compared to the way of life they've become accustomed to.
Well, you've got to strike while the iron's hot. You've got good flexibility in your brain muscles until about the age of 27 when your brain is grown. And you've got to exercise those muscles of autonomy, hard work, resilience, because without those exposures, it's a little bit frightening to see, what the result would be just living on a device or not getting outside and what that could mean for the trajectory of one's life. It's concerning as not only a parent, but working in the mental health field. Sign your kids up for XMC. I promise you won't be disappointed. I can't say it enough. Colonel, obviously you're very distinguished and respected nationally and internationally. From your leadership and experience in the military, what would you say has proven to be most valuable that you are passing down to youth? A lesson that you found most meaningful in your younger years?
Let me do one thing before we get into that. I want to make sure it's clear to you and to your listeners. I'm Colonel Land because the governor of Alabama says I'm Colonel Land. Okay. So I've been around the military in some fashion or form for many, many, many years, but I'm not, and nor do I portray myself as an Army colonel. It's an honorary rank for the sake of this structure. I've been referred to as Colonel Land by the Secretary of the Army and by the governor and by all kinds of different folks, but I never want anyone to think that I pretend like I'm something I'm not.
Well,
with that said,
how many lives have you touched through this program? You have more than earned the title colonel and the domino effect that you've had on children. But thank you. I understand your reason for clarity.
Yeah, I truly appreciate that, and I'm humbled by it. I'm just an old white hat sailor from back when Moby Dick was a minnow, okay, a long time ago. But answering your question, I'm sitting in my office right now, and I have this nice big fancy desk plate that has my name and my rank and insignia on it. And on the back that I see every day when I sit at my desk, it says, quote, "If you always take care of the troops, they will take care of you," end quote. And I think that is what I try to be or try to have is kind of my foundational leadership principle. Take care of people. And if you take good care of them, then they're going to know that they're appreciated. They're going to know that they're supported. They're going to know that they've got the right tools to execute the mission, whatever that mission may be. Mm-hmm. They're more likely to exhibit a positive response. And I hesitate to say, but loyalty. Yep. I think if you're loyal to others, they'll be loyal back. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it's just money. It's just a business relationship. But I think in this culture, in this environment, especially here at Camp Liberty, I think folks generally and genuinely know that my son and I care about them and that we'll do everything we can to take care of them so long as they take good care of my young people. And that's the best way for them to take care of me is to take care of my young people, take care of my challengers. Because that's what this place is all about. So I think that's the leadership lesson that I gained a long time ago that I really try to make is the cornerstone of how I lead and manage Camp Liberty and the program Extreme Military Challenge.
And that's just common decency, just respecting people, catch them doing something great, acknowledge it, and it just will spread positivity across the board in all the realms. That's a great piece of advice. Take care of the troops and they'll take care of you. After witnessing the transformation that happens at XMC, for this generation, what gives you the most hope about them? I think we spoke a little bit, kids learn by example. Let's just highlight what you think the kids that have come through XMC, say in the last 5 years, what are you most inspired and encouraged by?
Well, I think it's two things. One, I simply appreciate that they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. Now, for clarity, this is a summer camp. It's an experience. They're not joining the military. They're not intended to be warfighters. They're not trained as such. It's an experience, but for many of them, it is truly transformational. 2 years ago or so, I was in the middle of podunk backwoods banjo music, Tennessee, okay? Mm-hmm. Middle of nowhere. And I'm driving the Camp Liberty van, and next thing I know, I hear somebody honking. And I got a little aggravated. I look to my left, and what do I see but a young guy in a pickup truck sitting up high, pointing at his T-shirt, which had Extreme Military Challenge on the front.
You're kidding.
And then he drove away. I have no clue who he was.
Wow. That's
no idea. But I do know that morning, and he was a grown man. I mean, he had a beard, the whole 9 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
That morning, Extreme Military Challenge at least meant enough to him still to put on that shirt.
Yeah.
And the sight of the Camp Liberty van in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, was exciting enough for him to get my attention and say, "Hey, look at me. I'm part of the family."
Right.
I think that means a lot to me because we all need our tribe. We all need our people. And I think a lot of times that's what young folks find here at Camp Liberty is they find their tribe. They find the folks that they realize are what they see as their second family. Adversity builds strength. Adversity that is shared builds a bond.
Yes.
And a lot of these young people create a bond that their classmates just don't understand. And whether you call it battle buddy or shipmate or wingman or whatever it may be, it's something that's unique to the military environment that these young people not only understand, but they've experienced. So they create friendships and networking and bonds that are unlike most anything that a youngster that age will find elsewhere. Last week when I was in DC with the cadet staff ride cadets, it kind of recharges me because I'm reminded by listening to their stories and seeing them, goof around and hug and just kind of get reconnected. I'm reminded of the good that occurs by way of those friendships. Mm-hmm. And I've got friendships that go back nearly 50 years from when we were cadets, many, many moons ago. I think the other thing that encourages me is that despite all the challenges we have in this nation, and despite the differences that people may have politically and emotionally and religiously and socially and everything else, there's still people that believe in this great experiment that are willing to say, put me in, coach.
Yep.
And I don't have a desire for any of my cadets or for my son or my grandchildren or anyone else to ever have to be in a battle situation. Don't want it. Would love to never see it happen. But I'm grateful that there are people, young men and women, that say, put me in, coach, because this country is worth defending and our way of life is important enough, no matter how dysfunctional we may be at times, it's important enough to defend and protect. There's still young people, plenty of young people that believe. And I think part of that belief does come from the example that we set when old guys like myself put back on the uniform during the summer. And we show that that flag is still worth saluting, this land is still worth protecting, and these people are still worth defending. And they're still there. That feels good to me to know that I can still have some small impact on the future defense of this nation.
Yes, and it's quite impressive to see the cadets march in formation at the end of the program. The respect for the American flag, it's palpable. You feel it, and it has to be just such a great feeling for you to bring that to surface.
About 15% of our young people come from outside of the United States. And oftentimes their only view of our nation is based on late night TV, Law and Order, and things like that. So they think the whole country is New York City, Miami, Dallas, and Los Angeles. And the reality is the vast majority of our nation is just like Millersburg, Kentucky, and Battleground, Alabama, and Podunk, Florida, and wherever else it may be. So for me, it's very heartening to know that we're able to share what we are as a society and as a country and as a nation with youngsters and their families from outside this, our borders. And they can see us really for who we are. And generally, for the most part, we're people that just want to take care of our family, be there if needed, and legitimately will care for others when called upon. And I think that's a message that's important outside of our shore. Yeah. And in small part, we're able to communicate that message.
When they go back and talk with their friends and relatives to share that. It's just the impact. It's a splash beyond measure. Colonel Land, this has been such a great conversation. I do hope that you will come back here to the podcast and we can continue to discuss the programs and new programs that you're introducing. Thank you for tuning in. We will have all of the information on how to learn more about XMC, Extreme Military Challenge, and Colonel Joseph Land and the programs available. Please visit the show notes for more information.
I appreciate it. Let me throw in one last shameless plug. If there are any warfighters out there that miss it, that still have some fire in the gut, that still believe in what this nation's all about and want to have a positive impact on young people, then we're looking for you. There's always a place. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but we are always wanting to talk to you. Contact us at our website, xmccamp.com. We'd like to chat. We're always doing great things. Also here at Camp Liberty, we do everything from veterans retreats to tactical training in our 4,800 square foot shoot house. So we're available for a lot of different things, and we'd be glad to chat with you and tell you more about what we do here in beautiful downtown Battleground, Alabama, population 872.
And it is a beautiful town. Coleman is very welcoming and hospitable. That's where the hotels are. To visit your son or daughter if they are lucky enough to attend. It's a great experience through and through, and that's good to know. So spread the word. Anybody wanting to help the Colonel out, and thank you again, Colonel.
All right. Thank you. Mega hua.
Mega hook. God bless. And thank you so much. Christian Kuo, welcome to the Brighten Up Podcast. So happy to have you here. Christian has always been a kind, charismatic, and full of life young man. As his parents, we wanted to give him an opportunity to see what he was capable of, to challenge himself, build confidence, and open his mind to possibilities beyond what is at his fingertips. This past summer, Christian attended Extreme Military Challenge, and the transformation was incredible to witness. He rose to the occasion and demonstrated remarkable focus, maturity, and a sense of responsibility. He came back ready to start high school, earned the title and salute as a cadet, and really had a deeper understanding of leadership and teamwork. He is planning to go back to Extreme Military Challenge next summer for the medic program, which will not be quite as intense now that he has a rank, but is looking forward to building on the experience. Christian is 14 years old, a freshman at Cardinal Mooney High School. He's the third of 4 children. We invited Christian on to hear directly from him a little bit more about what his journey at Extreme Military Challenge meant to him and what he's learned along the way. Christian, after this experience, how do you see yourself differently? What did it show you about what you are truly capable of?
When the shark attack and the drill sergeants first came out, I kind of got a taste of what it was going to be like. And that following morning, they had us up around 4:30 a.m. And that really just gave me kind of some foresight as to what would be happening and the type of grit that I would have to get through the program. Before the program, I thought, I was just like an average teen, undisciplined, video games, social media, always talking on the phone with my friends. And, I wasn't really aware of what I really had inside of me and like willpower and my drive to do great things. But I feel that the Extreme Military Challenge definitely helped me to kind of tap into my potential, if you will. And it definitely helped me to see the world in a little bit of a different light.
I don't think either of us or Dad were really expecting the intensity of the camp. We knew it would be some physical activity and some challenging, similar to what it would be like being in boot camp. But from the moment you stepped on the grounds of Camp Liberty, you underwent that drastic haircut, had to get settled into the area where you would be spending the next 4 weeks. What was the hardest part initially?
I would say that the hardest part initially was just the intensity of everybody around you. You had to do everything 110%, or you would definitely, either get some PT or you would hear it if you weren't giving, your all, from usually the drill sergeants, but even your own platoon mates and your fellow recruits. If one person is not doing well, everybody is going to have to pay for it. Everybody's going to have to do PT. And it was super, intense at first. One mistake meant, push-ups, and that would go for everybody. So everybody was kind of held to a much higher standard than they were used to. It really required a lot of discipline, a lot of physical exertion just to go about the day. And you really had to be kind of meticulous and make sure you didn't make mistakes, or you'd really have to pay for them.
And it sounds like you really had to learn to work together as a unit and have each other's backs and survive the experience as a team.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, if one person went down, the entire company had to do PT, because a lot of times when we were together, someone's messing up, everybody's down on their face, either doing push-ups or any type of, physical exercise. And that mistake usually wasn't repeated again.
Christian, if you can pinpoint the hardest moment when you were ready to say, forget this, I am going to blow the horn and leave, what was that one moment and when that tested you most? And what do you think it was that helped you push through instead of giving up?
Really, I think it came pretty early on in the first 3 days. That the first meal that we had, it had been a long night. They had us, doing all types of different types of exercises with, my bag was about 50 pounds, carrying it, into the barracks, and it was just so difficult. And that morning they had us up, and at breakfast it was you all you had to do was face down, eat, and you had about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute to eat your food. And that really is kind of where it set in that this is what it's going to be like for the next 2 or 4 weeks. That really was kind of had me thinking, can I do this? I was really kind of doubting myself in that moment.
And what flipped the switch for you that said, yes, I can do this? I'm going to.
Well, I kind of thought back to, again, you and Dad and the other people around me, the other recruits, and we're all going through the same thing, and we're all doing it as, kind of a team. We're all trying to get better, build discipline, and just become leaders. So I really kind of felt that was kind of my driving force, if you will, to keep going.
Remarkable. Just to have that will and that belief and that courage to step outside of your comfort zone is remarkable. Now that you've completed the program, how do you think the experience might shape the way you lead, help your friends at Cardinal Mooney, or make choices in the future?
Earning a cadet badge and going through all that, you hold yourself to a higher standard. Even though there's not drill sergeants in your face yelling at you, making sure you do everything perfect, you kind of hold yourself to a certain standard after you've gone through something like that. And I feel that kind of helps me, kind of with some checks and balances. Of course, you can have fun with friends, maybe go on the video game a little bit, but you really do have to have that discipline. You really have to work hard, become your best self. And I feel that that's kind of this camp helped me set that bar. In terms of leadership, I feel that after you go through something difficult like that, you really gain a lot of confidence in yourself and your own abilities. And I feel that definitely helps, setting an example or leading others my age.
And that combined with your kindness is a superpower. So you are returning to Camp Liberty this year, Christian, this time, as I said, with an earned salute and the title of cadet. Can you share with the audience what you'll be doing this summer and what you hope to gain from this next experience? And maybe even give a shout out to some of your friends or some other people your age about why they may want to give XMC a try.
Going, again this summer, I think I'm really looking forward to the cadet medic program, that environment that really kind of sets you up to dial in on what you have to do, follow directions. You really, and that's just how you get the efficiency and you get the discipline, and everything's just kind of, you do everything highly motivated. That mindset can be applied to so many other people my age. The XMC has really given me a great opportunity and kind of helped me to kind of move forward with a lot more confidence and a lot more discipline. So I think that a lot of kids my age could definitely benefit from that.
And you're going to be an asset wherever you decide to live someday, whatever type of job you decide to have, even though you're doing the medic and aspiring to be a lawyer someday. Knowing some basic first aid and how to be helpful in an emergency situation, I think, is a life skill that will just benefit society and serve you well wherever you decide to go. Christian, thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions, and you're a rock star.